Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fabricator Forum. Let me get this. I am Mark Mario with the Natural Stone Institute. I run our accreditation program, which is a credentialing program for fabricators and installers. I also coordinate meetings for our safety committee, and I'm part of our education department as well, so I travel around doing one-day workshops for fabricators around the country that we do in partnership with Stone World magazine. And I am a recovering fabricator myself. I got into the stone industry back in the early 2000s, and I've been with the Institute for a little over 6 years now, trying to share and help companies grow and become safer and more efficient with the knowledge I've gained from my own experiences and from friends like these I have on stage with me today. I'm going to go down the line out of order. I've got Chris Guadagnoli, did I pronounce it correctly? Close?
Guadagnoli, it's
Sorry.
Close enough.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, your local guy here.
Yeah, we are from Orlando. I'm with Stone Tile Group. I've got around 22 years of doing the same thing here in Central Florida. We are a company that's different apart from being a fabricator. We're more of a niche company that tailors to a high-end market that we say we provide surface solutions. So we kind of pair and partner with architect and designers early on, and we'll tailor the project and do that as a turnkey from floors, driveways, showers, pools, interior pool shells, etc. So we're more of a how do you call it in terms of description? We're a unique group that does project by project, and not so much a mass producer that can conquer, what these guys can on the fabrication side of things.
We'll see if they got all the answers. But next up is a friend of mine, Jeff Erickson, and fellow Natural Stone Institute board member currently. Thank you for volunteering and serving in that role. Tell us a little bit about your background in the stone industry and what you guys do at Cutting Edge.
So I founded Cutting Edge Countertops with two partners back in 2006, and today we're a larger variety fabricator. We operate in 3 states. We're headquartered in Ohio. So we would be terrible at the things he does. We don't have the talent for that or the ability to manage those types of projects, but we are good at making a lot of countertops pretty well and getting in and out of about 60 homes a day. So that in and of itself is a unique challenge in the countertop business. We're accredited, got accredited back in like 2012, something like that. Yeah, one thing I've noticed through the years is that just to say you're a fabricator can mean a lot of things. Like so many of us do so many different things and we go to market in so many different ways. So as we talk today, I would keep that in mind and keep that as a point of reference.
Yeah, you guys have all grown your businesses and your shops over the years to be fairly successful, some very big and efficient, like my next friend as well, Shane Hogan-Miller. Tell us about your background in the stone industry, and you're another local guy here.
I'm a what?
Local.
Yeah, I'm
local operator.
Our shop's in Sanford, Florida. I'm the general manager there. I've been in the stone industry since 2001. Came from the flooring side to the stone industry. I'd say we're a medium-sized fabricator. We do about 12 to 15 kitchens a day. I'm not quite 60. That would put me in the hospital, I think. But yeah, we're a fabrication company. We are a fabricator, but we do everything in the spectrum. We do commercial, box store, residential, builder. We do stuff for Chris. Pretty much, if there's a project, we take it on. I don't know what else.
And as Jeff alluded to, fabricators can involve companies of all sizes, and this isn't intended to be a presentation of exactly what Chris does or exactly what Jeff or what Shane does in their shops. This is supposed to be for you, the fabricators out there, whether you're a one-man shop or someone with a bridge saw and a hand router. we want to hear from you, and some of the topics that are really popular these days are things that you want to learn about. I'll ask first before we open it up. Anybody have any questions you came here today wanting to figure out, or challenges in your shop? If not, I'm going to start just by asking these guys some general questions. Hopefully that'll warm you guys up. But we do want to hear from you and hear about the challenges that you have, and hopefully these guys can share some answers. Maybe we'll have some answers come from the other attendees here in the room today. How do you guys keep up with every business right now in this current climate is having trouble finding, retaining, keeping good employees? But you guys seem to be pretty steady with that. What strategies do you use to be successful keeping the right guys in there working, guys and gals?
Well, sometimes it's just having people. I mean, right now it's having good people is a luxury. We do have good people. We retain our employees because we treat them well. We take care of them. We're a family-run business. We treat them like family. I have guys that have been with me 20 years, 19 years. As far as new employees coming in, honestly, we take anybody. We take them in, work them for a little bit, see what they got, and try and get something out of what they can do. A lot of them don't last. The younger generation, I hate to sound like I'm an old man, but...
You say work them for a little bit. What does that imply? Do you have a formal program or steps that you go through?
Yeah, so we bring them in. Actually, what we do is we've been doing this for about a year. We hire people and we start them at the inventory stage. And I've got a guy that's been in the industry for a long time, and he weeds them out. He sees if they can handle aptitude to just take direction with a slab and, unloading trucks, and they start from there. And if they have some aptitude, he sends them up. We have a couple robot saws, Baca robots. Then they go there, and now they're a helper at the saw. And then we try and teach them the programming. So it's just try to keep stepping them through things.
So to my comment earlier, we're all different. In 2022, we hired 124 people, and we lost 110.
Wow.
I talked to another peer who's similar to us, and they hired 79 and lost 78 in 2022. So it kind of gives you an insight to the churn that we're seeing, and I think a lot of other people are seeing the same thing. However, I was talking to Buddy, who's sitting over here, is a fabricator as well. In 2022, he added 0 and lost 0. So what I take from that is, smaller companies they tend to have, a much tighter knit. I think the employees feel a little more beholden to the team because they've got to show up every day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, there's definitely been a change, I think, with the mentality of the workforce. I think we see that everywhere in every industry. Yeah. Just watch the news. We've got people, it's not uncommon for us to hire people, have them go through the whole orientation process, and then just not show up for the first day.
We've had that happen as well.
Yeah. Nobody out there has that issue? See a hand or two raised.
I think we should be asking them questions.
Yeah, we should be.
They have it all figured out.
Right.
What are you guys doing to find employees? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Chris. Are you having similar issues with the revolving door and people coming through?
We're in the same boat, and it's one of the things we did as a company to kind of combat that is we took a deep look at ourselves. And we took some time. We revamped the company handbook. We created an orchard concept that when someone's coming in, they're taught about how our approach to what the business is, and from that culture, we created an apprenticeship program, a fellowship program, and a mastership program. And so when someone is starting with us, that program shows the wages that skill set qualifies for. So what that helped us do is a young man that's starting out in this can see what he can make, because the younger generation now wants instant results. They want to know how fast they can make, how little they can do, and how much they can make. And that's helped us to kind of level the understanding when a new employee is coming in, what they're looking at, what they can make, what sort of responsibilities come with the money, and that seems to help us retain more employees.
That's really good. A couple years ago, we lost a guy that was a son of a key guy of ours, and he left us for less money, and he ended up, we're in the Rust Belt, so Detroit's 60 miles up the road, so there's a lot of tier 1, tier 2 automotive suppliers, and there's, a lot of unionized, welders, plumbers, electricians, things like that. So there's, what he left for, the best way I can describe it is a career path. So he left for the tool and die industry because it spelled out which path he was going to take, how long it would take him to study this, then he would achieve this level and get paid this much, and that's kind of what you described. Aaron, who's with the NSI, is working on a workforce development program, and we're kind of looking at the same thing. How do we put some formality around the positions that are in our industry?
Right, and that's one of the tools we've been working on developing with our education program, is also helping our members build an apprenticeship or a qualifications program within your company, because that was totally unscripted. I'm glad you shared that, Chris, because that really is an awesome thing for you to set up and define that path, what a career path looks like, other than you're hired as a backsplash polisher and you're stuck there for the next 5 years. What's next is the question they're looking for. It doesn't matter if it's a new generation employee or someone who's a new hire that has been around the industry for a while. They want to know what that path is within your organization. Anybody else out there have a well-defined career path that you've set up or something?
How many fabricators are in here? Quite a few.
Hey, everybody can raise their hand. The arms work. Good question.
You guys said you hired 78, or hired 79, fired 78, or lost 78.
Yeah.
You guys,
Let me get you on mic so we can get the recording.
This couldn't have all been 78 seasoned fabricators. What are you guys doing to train those guys up when they come through the door?
So it wasn't us that lost 78. We actually lost 110, but it was bigger number. It was company wide.
Same story.
We have, I will admit, we do not have a good training program. A lot of our ops guys are trained by on the job, which, we'll bring in certain parts of our company and they'll do an orientation. They'll go around the whole company and understand what the company does. They'll sit with different people throughout the whole chain. For you that fabricate countertops, the handoff that happens, or it goes from one place to the other, and then we end up getting it messed up at the end a lot of times. But yeah, they get a holistic picture of where they end up fitting in the whole scheme of things, and I think that's helpful. But we don't do that with our fabricators. We don't do that with our machine operators. We probably should. We have dabbled with sending shop guys out in our install crews so they have a better sense of what they're doing and how it impacts the people that install. But we need to do a better job. As you said, look in the mirror. There's a lot of things that we're not doing that we could be doing.
Any other questions out here? Come on, I know you guys, you didn't come here just for a lecture.
Is anybody in here doing anything creative like that would sort of get people trained up faster or be more interested in stick?
What'd you say? Clarify. Do you have a formal training program in place or anything like that, or incentive to attract and keep your guys, give them a direction within your company? What do you do there?
Well, for me, we normally, if someone comes in and they can't fabricate, we normally will start them out by learning to polish and let them know there's more incentives to learn how to fabricate. So they'll try to learn to polish properly as quick as possible so they can move up to make more money. So that's how I started out with guys that don't know how.
So if a guy on his first day, where would you tell him he can arrive at, and how long would it take him to get there?
His first day, he normally will observe. Don't touch anything. And 2 days down the line, then we'll have him start polishing, and we'll give him about 3 to 4 days to kind of learn how to polish. And we'll have someone directing him on every step.
Yeah.
Well, I think, just to jump in, I would encourage all business owners and leaders here to just slow down. Oftentimes we get caught up in just how busy our business is, and just take a moment to slow down and write down what it is that is the journey for the new person that's coming to your organization. What's the ideal experience for that you would like, that someone's joining your team? What does that mean? And really define it, and then just continue to develop it into not just the culture and having a blanket mission statement, but something that's active and a part of the business. Because I've done almost the same thing for 22 years here. The last 4, getting close to 5, has been night and day different. So imagine being a farmer and working your tail off in the field year after year, season after season, and yeah, you survived, you grew, you made it, and then going and meeting another person and flipping the script on how you approached your people. Because I could tell you, nearly 5 years later from that, it's a transformational result for the business, the people. So I was always a business first, people second guy, just by nature. Switching that to the people first side and really pouring in our efforts in our people first has changed the customer experience, the type of experience our staff gets from cross-training. So, in the onboarding process, you're going to be cross-training people and putting them in different environments. But also that doesn't just help you as a business. Well, if Larry's sick, Mo, he knows how to do it. He cross-trained. Yeah, there's those benefits, but it's what it does to the individual that's a part of the team that's not just seeing one corner of what your business does. They're buying into what your business is and why you're all doing what you do. So I can attest that, depending where you're at in your business, I wish I learned that, and made these changes, 18 years ago. But unfortunately, I've got to burn myself twice before I figure the stove's hot. But, in that regard, I would encourage you, and I'm free for it, any way I can help any other person experience what I've experienced, I'm willing to share.
So, sorry, this guy, I think.
Really quick, no, I agree completely with that. We took a little bit of an intermediary step before that, and we got some pushback from our managers and our employees. We went to temp agencies and negotiated with them the ability to bring on temp employees instantly as a pre-step to full-time employment. And what that did is it allowed, we got some pushback, meaning we don't value the people, but once our managers realized that, hey, I can hire somebody tomorrow through this process versus waiting for an onboarding, and it really helped us kind of, try out that employee and see if they were a good cultural fit. Before we, and that's been a tool that has helped us. But agree completely with what was just said. So,
Well, to add what you just mentioned, you've got to get a resource for people.
Yeah.
And one thing we found, by better defining who we were and what was important to us, really helped us weed through in that early process. Not just you might have the guy that's the greatest gift to a polishing pad, but at the end of the day, if he's toxic to the team, doesn't do any good. So we spent a lot of time again up front, and we've seen now how much time we save.
In our business, we don't experience a lot of turnover. We have people in our business that have been there for 15 years or more. A lot of people have been there for many years. So we don't have to train a lot of new people often. It's not a big thing for us. But one of the things that, as a business owner, and you guys are touching on it a little bit, is, giving people a path to stay there. Our philosophy has been, find good people and then try and find a place to put them, right? And, if they fit your culture or whatever, and, keep trying to give them a path and a place to move up, because, small companies, you can only give them so many places. Once you fill the place with good people, where's everybody going to go? So the challenges that we've had has been, growing the company, expanding the company to be able to keep offering people, another position, another place to step into. And I want to ask the guy in the middle, I forget. Jeff, how in the world you got to 112, or what was it? How many kitchens a day? 60 kitchens a day?
I always say we're in, people always say kitchens, but we don't just do kitchens. So we visit 60 houses a day on average, and that in itself is a challenge. That's why I say it that way, because those of us that fabricate in homes every day, what comes with that. You broke my branch, you ran into my basketball hoop, you name it. We've done it wrong.
Scratched my 30-year-old refrigerator.
Yeah, all that stuff. So, so we have.
How do you scale that? How did you get to? Where'd you start from?
Well,
we don't look at kitchens a day. We look at square feet. So.
Yeah, and so do we. But
so do we.
Yeah. How do you get there? We were. My dad had a glass company when I was younger, and I worked through that, and it was maybe 15, 20 people. So and we started, with 5 people, and maybe we had 15, 20 people in the first year and a half, and then it just kind of grew from there. So I'm very familiar with being that size and what that means and how it feels. So scaling it's a whole different story. There's some really wise people in our industry. One of them, you guys might know, Eric Tryon, talks a lot about scaling your business, and boy, it's a whole different ball game. And
and it's not just scaling; it's scaling it successfully. I mean, you can scale your business, and I think what you're getting at is maybe have too many people for what you're doing. I mean, you can have 120 people, but really only have the work for 100, but you have the other 20 to pick up for the people that miss.
I've got another question for you guys. So it's really cool and exciting when you've got 5 people and it's a growing business. It's really exciting and everything is up, and everybody's on the same path there. What do you do with that 15-year employee or the 20? Shane's got people 18, 20-year employees. How do you keep them motivated for that next level or to grow with the company?
Well, what you're talking about is progression. So, people want to feel like they're progressing, but that doesn't, in my opinion, necessarily mean they have to change what they do for a job.
Right.
You can be a subject matter expert and be the best slab shower guy on the planet and get a lot of satisfaction from that, and make sure that person's praised for that. Let them get the satisfaction every day, day in and day out, for doing that well. So I don't, unless they want to move somewhere else. We've got a lot of people that want to be the supervisor, but they have no idea what that means.
So I have a couple employees that have been with me 20 years. They are perfectly fine where they're at. Mm-hmm. They're those type of people. They don't want to be a manager. They don't want to be in charge of stuff. They want a 3% raise every year. Come in, clock out.
Well, that kind of brings a whole other problem, because you have a guy who's in a same position, right, but yet wants a raise every year.
You're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it has to fit into the the budget.
Yeah, the guy might come to you and say, I need a raise.
There has to be. That's a whole other can of worms that you got to deal with. Guys that just don't want to, or aren't capable of going up, but still deserve more money.
Right.
So that's what I think Chris set that good example from the start, where you said you open those communication lines. You define that career path as you saw it, but that kind of encouraged the communication with your employees. So now you get, I'm assuming, you get regular feedback from them.
Correct. And when it's time for someone's review, you have that template to go back to. And so that employee is essentially self-evaluating where they're at, and you can have an objective conversation about what the value of that skill set is. And obviously that's tailored for your market and so forth. But there's an additional thing. People want to be praised. People want to be recognized. And people take praise and recognition in different ways. For one individual, it might satisfy him. He's happy. He doesn't want the responsibility. Over the years, I've had guys that we were trying to push up in leadership, but that individual didn't want the responsibility. In our program, we have the apprenticeship program. There's 4 levels of fellowship, which are skill set based levels, and then there's 4 levels of mastership. Mastership is 100% in leadership of projects completed. So at the end of the day, for the guy that wants to continue climbing the ladder, for us, that means you're going to need to grow in the leadership where you can take less skilled guys and go accomplish something and be productive and ultimately make the company more money. It's not just a annual raise, that sort of approach in our company. It's more of a, there's an aspect to you eat what you kill. I mean, we're all together as a company, but if you want to make more and more, well, here's the avenue. And through the mastership side of things, if they've got all the skill sets and can lead other men, then they're going to be able to, we can put them on other projects and they can do more for themselves and for the company.
So they're not actually their boss. They're actually just leading, making sure they're doing things right, making sure the project's going well.
Correct.
So they're leveraging their experience, but letting guys that are less experienced get that work done.
Yeah.
That's
I would say we're not sending, for what we're doing, there's some complexities to it, but I always say we're not sending rockets to the moon. I mean, we put squares and rectangles inside of squares and rectangles for the most part. Some spheres and ellipses here and there, but so that being said,
you make it sound so easy.
That being said, there's a process to it all. And if a guy wants to climb the ladder, we provide a vision for him and we provide a process. But at the end of the day, we can't make it for him. And I think that's the hardest thing because it all sounds easy, but we can't make these decisions. We can't plug the drive in the individual. But what we can do is we can fuel them.
I have a question.
Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I have a question. Full disclosure, I'm Chris's partner. So full disclosure. Chris, what would you think as far as financial incentives we did with the team that you saw that matched and went? Can you speak a little bit about that? Because I know that was an aha.
Yeah. So for us, we have 2 sides to our business. We have the showroom, the import, the material supply side, and then we have the services team that's executing turnkey projects. For our services team, and that's where that apprenticeship program and all that has been instilled. We put together a quarterly incentive program. So what we did is we came up with a project value. So every job that we do that hits this, is this gross business volume number, that puts $5,000 in the bucket. And so as those jobs each quarter, whatever job is completed and closed out in a quarter, that money goes into the bucket and it gets spread out between the whole team on the services side. So the foreman from each job will get an extra percentage for the job that they led. But even the newest guy on the team that helped wash the floors for grouting, et cetera, he's going to get cut in on that money. And in the past,
So Chris, is that the whole team? So it's not like a us and them type of
correct.
competition within the shop?
It's the whole company,
Good.
right? And so, and that gives us a chance to get everybody together quarterly, have good, refining conversations about things we need to improve on, et cetera, to give praise if guys have passed a level in their status and their apprenticeship or fellowship that they're promoting up. They have certificates and we give them to them there and recognize them. So that whole platform for us has allowed us to really bring the guys together, because in the past we incentivized more individually, and then you get, well, I want to work with that crew. Guys aren't as wanting to share the wealth of knowledge because they're looking at it an advantage for themselves. That kind of remove the self and put it back into that orchard concept. For us is basically we tend the orchard. It's not ours, and we look at the business that way. So what's good for the orchard, and each guy has a role within that orchard. And for us, it's took a lot of the finger pointing, sort of things out of play and created a whole different environment. And that's, for us, like I said, it's transformational. I've done it same thing for almost 18 years and a little over 4 now that we've switched that and implemented it. And it's
Definitely see
it's
the
a game,
difference.
it's a game
We can
changer.
talk about employees all day. Go ahead. You got a question over here?
How about simply jobs that go good? What about jobs that don't go good? Problem.
So,
And how's your system set up to
So
absorb those?
the system is not really designed well for the failed job. When the job fails, as the owner, it costs Jim and I money. What we look, if our team is failing, it's probably because we bid it wrong or we did something up front wrong. In terms of accountability, we have ways of holding guys accountable if it's an individual. Let's say somebody did something negligent. We don't go to their pocket, but we'll work out a program for accountability, right? So accountability isn't always financially. So, it depends on each circumstance, but that's not a commonplace scenario. I would say we've done stuff. We have a job that's finishing now. It's gone on for a couple of years. I mean, it's cost us a lot of money. Cost us a lot of money in terms of what would be profit. We're not going into our pocket, but those are some of the things is what are we going to learn as a company? So we do a lot of looking back at ourselves in the ownership there. So
It's a healthy way to do it.
Let me ask one more question on employees. So where are you guys, you two at least, volunteered that you have a pretty revolving door-like scenario of in and out. Where are you finding those replacements, or where are you recruiting those people? You have anybody out here having trouble just getting the bodies? Any ideas? Go ahead, shout it out.
No, you're saying we're having problems like finding people to come in. I mean, a lot of them say that they have experience and whatnot, and once they get a grinder in their hand, they don't have any experience whatsoever. They're applying glue with gloves instead of stir sticks and and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's a problem that we've been dealing with a lot. We're like a two-man shop,
Yeah.
So it's really rough. And then the time that we do bring people and try to train them, it takes away from actually production. And so it kind of slows that down. And then we still try to, cater to them, make sure, hey, it's all right, don't worry about this, everybody makes mistakes. But it's like you got to train them every day. It's start over from the beginning all the time. And it's been a big process for us.
You just described the challenge of scaling.
Right.
The cost of training.
That's tricky.
The cost
It
of
is.
training. And Blake shared that you use that third party, didn't you? That takes care of some of that really initial training.
Well, yes, we use like I said, we use a temp agency that helps with the onboarding and helps us kind of be that in between where we can try before you buy type of thing, because we've had the same problem where I've got all this experience and then you put a grinder in their hand and they don't know what they're doing. But it's a way to be an intermediary. Again, the appreciation, the path is essential to have them to plug into, but just a way that you can kind of test them before you commit to a full-time employee.
There's a really good book called Good to Great. I don't know if you guys have read that, but I think it's a real thing. There's people that are predisposed to do things well, and we've all seen guys that are two left thumbs that they'll never get it. But then you get a guy who comes in and just kills it the first 2 days, and you're like, there's something there. That guy's got raw talent for what that job is. Now you go put him in the sales floor, he might be terrible.
Right.
But it's about finding the right fit. I have an interesting story. We did what we call a define a role, which is different than a job description. It's more the essence of the job. We were trying to figure out how to get better installers. So we sat around the room with sticky notes and we said, okay, who's the best guy we have? And let's write down all the characteristics of that guy. And this is through the lens of we all go to market differently. So what we do every day is even though we're the same fabricator, we're doing it differently. Right. So
you may define different talents that Chris would need or Shane would need.
Right.
You
so
define.
we had this idea of who we were looking for an installer. Big guy, strong guy, can lift heavy stuff, knows how to read a tape measure, can use a caulk gun pretty well, right? Sound familiar? So these are the way the conversations went in the interviews. But when we did the definer role, Guess where that stuff ended up in the list? Below 10. What came up on the list for us, because when I say we're in 60 homes a day, we're in 60 homes a day where people live there, which is unique because your people, when you go to job sites, they're not living there yet, right?
Yeah.
Generally?
20% might have some.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us do like production builder homes where,
Unoccupied,
there's nobody
yeah.
there. There's
Right.
not even a floor in yet.
Or
It's-
commercial where
Yeah,
they're
there's not even a
building
driveway, so
something.
you have no
Yeah.
driveway to leak oil on or
Right.
something like that. So it was more about the person that we put in the house and how comfortable that customer felt with our person rather than their ability to put countertops in. Now they have to be sufficiently good. They have to know how to shim and pull seams and caulk and do all the stuff that's basic stuff, but what was more important was how they made that customer feel.
So the comfort level with the customer is
Yeah.
very important
So
each day.
so when you look at your business, look at how you do business. Blake does an interesting thing in his presentations. He puts, what do you call them, unicorn glasses on?
Yeah.
Where his point is everybody's business is different. So there is no magic bullet that you're going to learn.
We've had some luck breaking down the idea of what a fabricator is. Actually even trying to get rid of that word that, we need fabricators or we need installers. We just need good people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what we've talked about is more manufacturing. Let's bring you in and teach you how to run a manufacturing process. Not so much, can you run a grinder?
Right.
If they can, great, but can they understand the manufacturing process? And some of the younger people are really liking that, so it's opening up. Even Indeed, we're starting to see more hits on that.
Well, the process is the structure. They like the structure part of it.
Exactly.
Instead of, here's a grinder, let's see what you can do. They want to be taken along the process.
And Jeff, you know our good friends Rob and Chuck over in PA. They've done a great job. Just the way they define roles in their company, they make little 2-minute intro videos. This is what they make it look exciting and cool, like a little 2-minute YouTube video on what it is to be a sawyer or what it is to be an installer, and they show those happy moments of the satisfied customer in the home and good job guys. And they celebrate.
False advertising.
Well, it may be, but it creates excitement out of something that may, we're in the weeds of it. We may look at it as not an exciting role or position, but
Yeah.
they find the highlights or the fun parts of those and make that attractive.
Well,
to
when
try
you
and-
think about it, when you put an ad in that says fabricator, most people in the world have no idea what
What does that mean?
means.
Right. Good. Well, I got this up next. Silica and silico safety. We touched on it. We can do that. You guys have other questions, other topics you want to talk about? We can talk about safety. Silica is a big one in the industry. Another one I know, let's move on to this one because I know another one, this comes up quite a bit recently, and we don't want to get too political or anything like that, but just general market economics. What's your guys' outlook for the next...
We're in Florida, so
We're in Florida? Well... 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, do you guys have expectations of what's going on in the U.S. market or world marketplace? You guys planning for that?
For us, we're importing from every corner of the world, doing different projects as well as utilizing materials here from the States. And we continue, we're scheduled to continue growing. We've had some pretty record growth over the last 4 years. And we don't see that slowing down. So our indicator is we're dealing with the architects as they're drawing stuff up. And if they're not drawing and they start laying off people, that's our first indication that things are slowing down. So for us here in Central Florida, the niche market that we service, they're still turning work away. So I think Central Florida, for the most part, is still going to continue trending, especially in the high
People
end.
are coming here.
So your answer would be the same then, Shane?
Yeah,
It's still
because-
booming?
Unlike a lot of different parts of the country, we're seeing that influx of people coming into our state. So if something's going on national, we're kind of secluded down here in the South. That we still have people coming in. It's bringing the economy, keeping it moving. So we're not getting like the slowdown in construction, and I mean they're looking for dirt all the time to build houses and apartments.
Is that the same up in the Rust Belt?
Who wants to move to Ohio?
Right.
So we have a different issue, yeah. And, your customers are not running out of money.
Correct. Ours either. Because they're coming from
here's-
places that they made a lot of money and they come down here.
So again, we're all different
Right.
because we go to market different.
Right.
So, personally, we're not attached to really any new homes. So I think we've seen that, or peers that I know that work for a lot of, home builders, production builders, a lot of that's drying up to a degree. People where rates are today, people would like to move, but they're not going to give up their 3% mortgage to go get a 7% mortgage and build a home. So,
Does that frighten any of you folks out there? Is that affecting you? Or everybody here, was any of you around in 2008? And well, I'm glad to see you're all still here if
We're
that's
still
the
here.
case. But those who didn't go through that, that was a tough time. And I was one of those victims of that. The company I ran and owned at the time was not prepared for that huge immediate downturn. And I've stayed in the industry, thankfully.
yeah, I mean, we're not pessimistic, but we're not overly optimistic either.
Cautiously.
I think it's so far so good, but I'm not super optimistic after 6 months from now.
Right.
So in Australia, there are rumors that they're banning quartz because of the danger. Do you guys see that trend happening in the United States? Because, quartz has taken over the granite market, and now do you think quartz will go away?
She just blew up the room.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the state of the industry a little bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I wasn't in there. What did y'all say?
Silica is a big issue, and there's a major quartz brand where the company owner was found guilty
Negligence
for negligence. Yeah, but I don't. He could do jail time, but probably not. But it's something that we all need to take seriously. I know we are. I don't know if you guys deal with this, but
We don't have the same scenario that you guys do in the shop.
Daily exposure.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen. Australia, from what Katie said yesterday, Australia, I mean, they've been doing quartz for 20 years, and it's like 80% of what they make over there is quartz. So I think it's been more prolific for longer there, and they're very, look at the way the lockdowns were in Australia, the way they handled that. They're very cautious that way. So you have that part of it. I don't think it's going to happen here that quickly, or I don't think it's going to happen at all necessarily. But I think we all, as fabricators, need to pay attention. If you don't have a silica...
For those of you that don't know the situation in Australia, there are multiple lawsuits, multiple cases involving silica and safety over there. For years, many years, way ahead of the U.S., they banned any form of dry cutting whatsoever. Mm-hmm. If they have an officer walk in your shop, they'll pull your business license. They'll shut you down. It's not an OSHA violation. They'll just completely shut you down. It's illegal. But now there is a movement in Australia by business owners with those health concerns to ban products like engineered quartz that contain high percentages of silica. They want to take it off the market entirely, saying it's an unsafe product. Yeah. I agree with Jeff. I don't think we're going to see that extreme here in the U.S., but just knowing that it's out there, that it's a possibility, that's some of the undercurrents and things that are going on globally. Be aware of it.
You just described a risk, but I think the bigger risk is that if we don't, in our businesses, deal with it, so have a silica exposure plan in place, actually a written plan that says how you're going to mitigate silica in your operation, and then do that, then you're at risk. If somebody, one of your employees decides to blow a whistle, complain, whatever, and you have OSHA in and you don't have that, you're going to be in big trouble. So the smart thing to do would be get out ahead of that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're all talking about it. It's awareness now. Mm-hmm. So if you're not doing anything to mitigate that risk, then you're being negligent too. I mean, today's technology and how shops can be set up, cutting dry should not even be an option for people. You shouldn't need the government to tell you not to do it. You should do that on your own.
That's right. It's a real thing. I think the NSI has some good resources to go. If you don't have one, figure out how to find one and make one, and then,
I know where they can find one.
where.
That's one of the initiatives I've worked on personally over the last 5 or 6 years is the silica awareness and OSHA compliance with silica safety. So on the Natural Stone Institute website, you don't even have to be a member or log in to access this information from our safety page. So naturalstoneinstitute.org/safety, the main safety page. There are links directly to silica resources, and one of those includes a downloadable boilerplate document that you can download and implement as part of a silica exposure control plan, which for those of you, anybody been visited involuntarily by OSHA enforcement? I'm not going to ask you how it went, but that's one of the things they're looking for, and one of the most cited violations is just paperwork and training records that they'll ask about. And so just having that in place and having your employees training them so they understand the risks involved with cutting dry. I'm not going to ask who cuts dry. Hopefully it's nobody these days. But I agree with Shane. There's technologies out there and tooling and equipment that exists where there's no reason for it anymore these days. And I think that's one of the ways that us in the U.S. can probably avoid what's the movement that's happening in Australia.
We went completely wet, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, because I saw the problem. And my fabricators went nuts. They thought it was the end of the world. I bought grinders that had water fed to it. They said, I'm not going to be able to do my job. I'm not going to be able to see what I'm doing because water's going to be flying around. To this day, if somebody turns on a grinder and they don't have water going to it, my shop shuts down. Everybody goes, hey, get the water, put on that grinder. It's the atmosphere that you create in your shop. You get everybody on board. And the byproduct is you're letting your employee know that you care about them. So, I mean, it's a twofold thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So what Shane just said about letting your employees know you care about them, number one is the safety and health of them. All of this is definitely happening. The awareness is important. The lawyers in the United States are much more hungrier than in other countries. And, we all know how that works. They'll sue everybody. And, I have shallow pockets, not as much as the manufacturers do. But the other thing I was going to mention on this is, I'm an old man, I'm starting to forget stuff. But if you invite OSHA in voluntarily, you're on this list that you cooperate all the time. So if you do get this disgruntled employee, and they call up and say, hey, buddy's doing all this, and I don't feel safe there, and all that, and but you're already on this voluntary list. They come in regularly. I have them come in every 2 to 3 years just to basically walk around and say, hey, you know better than this. You should have fixed that ladder or whatever. Not that I need a ladder for anything, but if you get that call for enforcement to come in, compliance to come in, they'll call up the voluntary guy. They'll see that you're on the list and say, hey, Gary's my volunteer guy. I got a call on Entra. What's going on? I don't know. Let me give him a call. And Gary will call me up and say, what's going on? I said, I fired this guy. He was, consistently drunk and blah, 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 blah. And he says, all right, well, I have, I'm going to stop by and I'll call the other guy up and, the enforcement guy up. But if you are regularly inviting them in to, if you call them and say, hey, I want to see what I can do better. Now you're on the good list. It's like the Santa Claus list. You're on the good list. And they're not going to come in with their invoice book.
I'll speak to that real quickly. Before we wrap up, though, we've got about 10 minutes left. So if we're not getting to those topics, you guys have burning topics you wanted to come here and learn about or discuss, you're running out of time to raise your hand. But on the OSHA enforcement side, there's actually 2 offices. Buddy said the consultation office. And he used the word OSHA repeatedly. Technically, it is under the umbrella of federal OSHA, but in every state in the U.S., there's a consultation office, and it's a separate office from the citation and the enforcement people. They're strictly there. They're paid for by your tax dollars, so you're already paying for the service. If you're not using it, it's free. You can reach out to the consultation office in your state. If you need help contacting them, reach out to me, and I'll get you the links. But once they're invited in, like Buddy said, it's the closest thing to a get out of jail free card. You're on a clean list, if you will, or you're actively working. From the minute you make the first request for that consultation, what you're doing is asking them in to help you. So it's a private consultation. They do not communicate any of their findings to enforcement. So it's not like they get in your shop, find risks, and go, you better get over here with your ticket book. They come in there purely on a consultative basis when you invite them, and they give you resources and ideas to help improve safety in your shop. And it does keep you on that good list, if you will. The only time the enforcement guys will then show up would be if there's you show up on a random list, or if there's a serious accident, fatality, or a disgruntled worker complaint, a former worker that calls in. But Blake had to step out, but he texted me last week. He had an enforcement officer show up at his shop. He's like, Mark, what do I do? I said, you're good. Because I knew what he had been doing training-wise and with the consultative division. He asked about some specific rights for him as the employer and his employees in talking with the enforcement officer, but he had a disgruntled employee call in. Similar to what Buddy's mentioned, the enforcement officer came in, went through all those training records I mentioned, make sure everything was on the up and up with them. He said it was less than an hour that enforcement officer left with and didn't write a single fine.
Like you said, with the training records, they love the paper.
They love the paper.
They love the paper. Have your paper, your checklist on the forklift, all of that. All that stuff.
Did you have a question over here? Okay. Anybody else?
So I have something to add with.
Please.
A lot of companies are monitoring their employees. There's a little monitor they put on, so when you invite them in, you can self-monitor.
So part of that
silica.
is industrial health and safety.
Right.
So they can do air quality monitoring for silica exposure. They can do hearing testing for noise exposure.
So
as part of that free service.
We also, when we onboard a new employee, whether it's an installer or a shop guy, we actually send them to a physical, and then we get a lung X-ray. So we don't know if they worked in the concrete business. We don't know if they worked in the making patios. We don't know what they've done before they came to us. So we get a baseline with them. So, because you could hire a person that's been exposed already, and now you own it. So that's just a piece of advice that someone might find helpful. But it's the voluntary thing.
Who out there is familiar with this? Has used voluntary consultation?
Yeah.
I see a couple of hands. So good.
So there's two things. We all generally don't want our employees to get hurt. I mean, that's an awful day. We see these slab crushings happen multiple times a year. That would just be horrible.
Well, you talk about the expense of training when you compare that to the expense of an injury or an accident.
So there's that side, and then there also is the I don't want to get in trouble side. So, I always ask people, does your receptionist or whoever answers the door, do they know what to say or what to do when OSHA walks in your door? And if you can't answer that, then you have a gap.
Yeah. And we can help.
You can. Mark can help.
No, we really can't. Any other hot topics, difficulties in your shop, materials, equipment, other things you guys have challenges on? These guys might be able to share and learn from.
I'll add one thing that's invaluable.
Please.
And Jim can, if you got questions, you can see Jim, my partner in the corner, but he's a cash flow. So you talked about scalability and growth. That's going to be the number one thing that, aside from setting your parameters and safety and these things, but if you're not looking at and able to manage that cash flow, it'll be a tough road of growing. So just want to throw that out there. And if you got questions, go see Jim, back left corner.
Publish his email and cell phone number.
Yeah.
Well, unless you guys have any other questions, I think we're closing in on the hour. We've got about 5 minutes to go. If you guys have any questions, we can get to them, or else we'll wrap this up. Go ahead. Good.
We're a small company.
Okay.
8 people in fabrication, installation. So finding the time for the things that we were just all speaking about is probably the biggest challenge, whereas possibly in a large company you have a department for this, a department for that, or a guy for this, guy for that. since you guys did come from small, how would you say, I know we have to do it, just as an owner, I'm jumping in fabrication, installation, still, I haven't gotten past that. So how do we get past that and get into making the management a priority?
For us, we started with 3 people, and within a couple of years, like you, we were up to 50 within the first 3 years, and we just beat our heads against the wall. The only way you can do is you have to set up processes to make your employees successful, okay? So regardless if you're 5, 15, or 50, you have to have a process that they can follow that through your business. What gets done now, what gets done now, what gets done now. And that's the only way you can make it work. I mean, you can't just, for us, it used to be me, the one guy that knew everything about every job, okay? If I wasn't there, then they couldn't do anything. So you have to set up process, you have to share information. Everybody should have access to the information that's pertinent to each job. It's the only way.
That you guys use for that, or?
There's multiple.
I was going to ask you a question.
Everywhere.
How about this one? Along those growth curves from 5 or 3 people to whatever you guys have grown to now, what were some of the most useful investments? If it's training, equipment, time, what were some of the most useful things that helped you realize that success?
20 years ago. Moreware. We didn't use it right for 14 of those 20 years. It was just a calendar with some information. So it's not just purchasing software. You have to actually use it and implement it into how you operate on a daily basis.
I think what you have to make the things that aren't as urgent important. So I fully understand when you walk in and you have all this stuff to do and you have customer on the other end, you have to get them finished, and there's all kinds of things that happen. But if you don't make those things important, they'll just get pushed to the side. You'll never get to them. There's a really good book that was written a long time ago called The E-Myth by a guy named Michael Gerber, and it talks about how to make the transition from the person doing the work to the person managing the work.
Yep, that one has been around a while.
I'll give you 2 for anybody on the small business side for task management and delegating tasks and sharing information. There's a software called Trello, Trello.com. It's really user-friendly and easy. There's another one called Monday, Monday.com. But between those 2, it'll at least give you a place to start putting stuff. So you can add people to it. It's real intuitive, but you could start putting the processes and the procedures that you haven't had time. I struggled with it for 18 years to really just stop and put the things that were in my head. As Jim used to say, I got to get it out of you. And he would just grind it, but he helped me because I needed someone. I didn't have the wherewithal or the self-discipline to just stop and actually get it all out. Yeah. And I would say it's probably one of the hardest tasks you'll do as a business owner, because in that process, you're going to find things that you need to change too, right? And so that's usually the hardest for most of us
I would recommend using a cell phone, getting a video of things that you do, and have somebody just videotape it, and then you can use that as your SOP. It could be that simple.
And both of those softwares, you can upload videos, link things to it. So we use that for our guys in the field. We use it for all their safety training, their information, procedures. It's all there, as well as it flows into the projects that they get assigned to. So
yeah, our marketing folks use Monday to communicate all the different projects they have working on interrelated. So I'm familiar with one of them. You have a question here?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to that is I would just highly recommend as well as, finding a mentor or somebody that's been through it, because even somebody that's been doing it for many years, as we go to new shops, you can pick something up anywhere. And that is huge.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's a lot of great groups, ISFA and SFA and Rockheads. Those are all groups that you can learn from other people. And, once you see what's possible, you know that you can go grab it and do it. Perspective. It just sets your perspective the right way, and then you know what you know it's possible to chase it once you see it. And then you go, well, how'd you do that? Well, this little thing was the key. So networking with people is just huge.
Thomas said that. Yeah, visit as many shops as you can. That's part of the luxury of my job now is I get to travel and visit so many member shops and non-member shops and visit and see so many different ways people fabricate, small, big, everybody in between. It's
I
fascinating.
held a workshop, and people said, you're crazy having all those people in your shop.
Yeah.
And I looked at it as like you have 150 industry professionals there to look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Yeah.
Tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah,
You're not making the secret recipe for
Right.
Coca-Cola. You're not revealing
kind of
that.
like what he said earlier. Us fabricators, we cut rectangles and put holes in them.
We had a Rockheads event at Fred Christensen's place years back, and Fred stood up and said, I'm asking you guys, I've got a bunch of qualified eyes walking through my shop.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me everything you see that I can do better.
Yeah.
What a great...
invite people into your shop. Visit as many shops as you can. Invite people into your shop. Start those relationships. Even if you can't get out of your shop, like Thomas mentioned or you guys mentioned, there are all kinds of groups. There's Facebook groups. There's also there's Stone Fabricators Alliance. There's the NSI. Yeah. You can reach out to us. Even as a non-member, I'll give you a certain amount of technical support and give you some guidance, and hopefully you'll see the value in long-term membership.
My dad used to say his best ideas are stolen.
Yeah.
Right.
Before we wrap up, I do want to mention Jeff's buying everybody drinks tonight. The Natural Stone Institute is hosting a happy hour on the third floor in the north hall, so the other side of the building, or the north side of this hall, tonight from 5:30 to 7. So come enjoy a drink on us. We do have additional education going on today. I'll be doing a walking tour on the show floor. It's starting in our booth 4092, I believe. I don't know the time, but it'll be a walking tour of ideal tools and equipment to have on your install rig or install truck. We do have additional education. I talked yesterday and I'll be doing again tomorrow, talking about some of the challenges and difficulties with quartzite as a material, the natural quartzite, some of the staining issues that people are encountering. And then also we've got a stone ID kit, try and help you understand how to classify stone correctly, even if your importer or distributor or quarry that supplier does not. So some of the cool sessions going on. Just look at the education calendar, some of the things we're putting on. Buddy also wanted me to mention that we also have a Pinnacle Award for residential installations. So if you are doing some of those super fantastic projects, you want to be celebrated, the work that you're doing, reach out to me. We'll make sure you can get that submitted to be considered for one of the Pinnacle Awards later on this year. I think our deadline for that's May 20th usually, or May 5th, somewhere in May. But reach out to us soon if you're interested in that or have a really award-worthy project. I want to say thanks to my friends, Chris, Jeff, and Shane, for lending me their background, their expertise, and sharing that with you guys today. Thanks for those who asked questions and trying to keep this moving along. And thanks for everybody coming out to the show today. Hopefully we've helped you with a little insight to improve your business, and there's more stuff to learn on the show floor. Thanks, and have a great day.